2024 at 7:00 p.m. I'd ask Mr. Shields to please call the roll.
Off,
Here.
Rainey. Here. Walsh.
Here.
Shields. Here. Noel.
Here.
All right, next item on the agenda is the swearing in. I'd ask the folks who will be testifying here today for the public hearing to please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that your testimony in these proceedings will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Please be seated. Next item on the agenda is public comment. Are there any people who wish to make public comment at this time? Chris, let me know if you got any hands raised.
No hands raised.
And nobody here in the audience except for the two gentlemen who are speaking, unless you two would like to make any public comment on anything? Okay, then we'll move on to the next item on the agenda, public hearing. It's entitled on the agenda variance. We'll retain the title for the moment. Variance number 23009, Scio Retail Management LLC by Hani Karana. Do I have that? Do I pronounce that correctly?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Regarding sign for Pete Away, 5609 Jackson Road, H-08-21-400-042. The applicant requests an administrative review of a determination made by an administrative official regarding building frontage as it relates to allowable wall signs. The applicant requests that the west side of the building be considered the frontage of the building for purposes of determining total allowable wall signs rather than the north or south sides of the building as determined by the Scio Township Administrative (zoning) official. This administrative review, by the way, let me just finish this. This administrative review is being requested pursuant to section 36-427.c, as in Charlie, of the Scio Township zoning ordinance. The administrative review, if successful, would allow 72 square feet of total signage rather than the maximum permitted 36.3 square feet. I'll briefly go through the procedures for how the public hearing will be conducted. I'll open the public hearing by announcing the subject of the appeal, the petition by identifying the applicant's name, case number, specified request, and the general location of the subject property, which I just did. I'll then summarize the procedures and rules to be followed during the hearing, which I am doing now. I will then call on the petitioner or the petitioner's representative to present statements in support of the appeal, along with any supporting evidence. The petitioner, his or her agent or attorney, may present his or her case, including presenting witnesses on his or her behalf. After that, members of the ZBA shall report on their site inspection and any conversations with the petitioner which they may have had. Next, members of the public who support the petitioner speak and correspondence is read. Next, members of the public who oppose the petitioner speak and correspondence is read. Next, the chairperson, me, shall permit or may permit the petitioner a rebuttal within limits set. After which time I can, upon motion or motion of any ZBA member, announce the close of the hearing or announce continuation of the public hearing to another specified time and date if the hour is late or additional pertinent information must be obtained, after which time the ZBA will deliberate amongst themselves the request and decide the issue, or if a majority of the members decide more information or clarification is needed, the issue may be postponed to a future hearing. Also, I should note that under our rules, ZBA members may question the petitioner or others in support or others in opposition during the presentations, which is likely to occur. And then let me just stop for just a moment. Is Laura Krebs there?
I think he's there.
Oh, she is there? Okay. Good evening, Laura. Good evening.
Hi.
Good evening, Ms. Krebs.
Good evening.
All right, so without further ado, I'll ask the applicant or anybody who's going to be speaking to come up to the table and take a seat. And I'll ask you to introduce yourselves for us, please.
Good evening, everyone. My name Hani, from owner of Karana Electric Science Company. And here is the owner of all the Pita Way. It's a franchise company. So he's the owner of this, all the restaurants of Pita Way.
Could I have his name?
Yeah, my name is Brandon Bahora.
Spell the last name.
He has a
please.
boy, Ahoura. And I'm the owner of the company.
Okay, Mr. Bourne.
Thank you.
If you have it, could you sign it, please?
I did.
All right, great. Thank
Yep,
you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's what happens.
It's kind of a preliminary matter because this is a little bit out of the ordinary for us, although we have done it in the past. Although it's, and as I indicated when I was reading the agenda off, this is entitled the variance number 23009, but I think variance is probably inaccurate. You're really asking for a review of an administrative decision. Is that correct?
Yeah, we are looking for larger size.
I understand that. Do you understand the distinction between asking for a review of an administrative decision versus asking for a variance under our rules?
Can you explain that?
In general terms, a variance has to meet certain criteria and is based on the general idea of unnecessary hardship or similar reasons to grant a variance with specific issues that have to be addressed according to our zoning ordinance. A review of an administrative decision is what we were led to believe, we meaning the ZBA, were led to believe what this is all about because the zoning official, the administrative official who said you couldn't have bigger signs, and the request for a review of that is a request that the official made a mistake in interpreting the ordinance.
Got it. So what I'm thinking is, I know Hani has his little argument, but I think the proper thing we should have probably pursued was to ask for a variance because.
Okay, and I understand.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons I asked the questions, because if it is, we're gonna have to redo some stuff
Okay,
because it's a completely different set of issues. Am I wrong or help me out?
You're correct.
it makes sense what you're saying. I get it.
I think that it was presented to us though as an administrative review.
Yes, it was.
And it seems to me that it qualifies for that consideration.
I think you may be right.
So if the applicant wants to proceed rather than go back and try and redo this.
I think that'd be too timely for me, to be honest, if I had to go back and reschedule and do the proper
I
stuff. That might be
Let
time.
me ask Ms. Krebs, would you agree with me that if the applicant was seeking a variance, that this would have to be rescheduled, renoticed and everything?
Yes, we reviewed this as an administrative decision based on the information they provided in the application. They didn't ask for a variance. The way it was written really was, looking for, an interpretation, more or less.
Okay.
So, but yes, a variance would require to go back through the process.
Okay, and actually, yeah, okay. And just for the record, Ms. Krebs, the entitlement of this as variance number 23009 is just a administrative or clerical kind of description of what the hearing is. It doesn't actually request a variance.
Correct. I think, the majority of, things that you review are variances, and probably that's just how, all of these applications are numbered in the township, files.
Well, then why don't we proceed upon what we sort of understood was the reason for the hearing, which is actually a review of an administrative determination. That does, of course, put the ball in the applicant's court to make an argument that the administrative decision was wrong, according to the wording of our ordinance.
So go ahead and explain
Yeah.
your thoughts behind it,
Yeah.
and they'll consider it and go from there.
Let me start with the explanation of this. That's at the beginning,
We do have copies of what you were
Yes,
referring
yeah.
to, the color photograph
Yes, there you have the copy.
or drawing.
Yeah. Like at the first drawing, the top, this is a site plan. That's explain the building. It's at the corner of the two roads, Jackson and Zeep Road. And the building contain like there is 7 stores. Like if you come like from the east, is first one tropical smoothie, the other one second Great Cliffs, third AT&T, fourth West Harbor Care, 5 Wild Belly Tobacco, the 6th is Little Caesars Pizza, and the 7th one that is to the west is our stores Pita Way. As shown in at the building, there is these 7 stores. There is 2 identical, like number 1 and number 7 is identical to each other. Like 2 of them, they have side frontage. Each one like 80. Like a tropical smoothie, they have 80 feet long to the east of the building. And feet away, the number 7, we have here to the west, 80 feet long. So like to get the sign here, as the ordinance is like supposed to be 1.65, this factor, they multiply by the frontage.
May I stop you there? May I stop you right there, Mr. Karana?
Yes.
It's really 165%. Is that what you're?
1.65.
Okay.
Multiply by the frontage. Yes, yeah,
Well,
as you said.
actually, multiply.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I thought
you're
you
right.
Divided, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So in the case of like a tropical smoothie which is identical to Pita Way, they considered like the 80 is a frontage plus 22. The 80 is on Zeep Road and 22 is on Jackson Road. So they calculate 102 foot frontage. Like for us, Pita Way, although it is the same size in everything, like the 80 foot, only it is to the west. So that one is to the east, this is to the west. it's identical to. So these two is different than the other stores, like number 2, number 3, 4, 5, 6. These stores, they are small, and there is the wall to the outside is only 22. But for us, we have 22 to the north, 22 to the south, and 80 to the west. The same thing like a tropical tan. Now the tropical tan, if you go to the second drawing underneath of this, they have sign equal 52 square feet for to the north. And to the south, they have 52 square feet. Like for Beta Way, this is the drawing here. This is not exist sign. This is the proposed sign. That's what we are requesting. But this is here to up to scale. We are requesting sign 12 feet by 3 feet. That's 36 square feet. So although like a tropical tan, which is we are compared with tropical tan is 52, we are only requesting 36. Like still 36 is a small sign, but it's better than less. Because if we put less sign, like if we consider the frontage only 22, we're gonna have like very small sign. This very small sign, this is how he's my client. I do all the signs for him. To be honest with you, like this sign is gonna be very small, like compared to big building he has. Yeah, like if I show you a picture of this store, it's huge, and then they're gonna have very small sign. This is first, it's not gonna give him business. Probably he gonna close it maybe anytime soon, maybe 1-2 years. That's what happened in one of his store. He closed. The reason it was the sign. This building he paid more than the other stores, like the number 2 and 3, 4, 5, 6. He paid more. He's paying rent more than these. The reason because he has a big wall, like 80 feet. He was expecting like he gonna get a good signs. So in this case, we are only seeking like average sign, like normal signs. We are not seeking big signs. Like I never did sign to him in all his locations, like 18. 18, who gonna see it? Who gonna read it? 18. And other thing, like compared to this big building, and imagine you are drive like, see like very small sign on a big building. Also, it's not like, it's weird. Another thing is not symmetrical to the building. Like for example, like here, the tropical smoothie, they have big sign. And here, even we don't have 36. 18 is gonna be like this sign, and tropical tan, they have big sign, and they allowed more. Now tropical tan, they allowed more than 52, but they did 52. Now we want a small sign, 36, and we are not allowed only 18. This 18, to be honest with you, the business is gonna face a lot of hardship. I have to be honest with him. I told him, this is like first time happened this. So we are seeking here help from you to at least to start a business in the right way. He wants to stay. He's doing like business for a long time. When he opened, he wants to stay. Like he has many like employee. You know, we don't want him like after that, you know, to close. He's spending a lot of money, and here is the owner. It's very important to him. A sign. He was planning to travel. He postponed the traveling. He come with me like just to explain to you. I want your help. If there is any question, I am happy to answer any question.
Okay. I'm sorry.
I have a question if you're ready to. open
Fire
it up.
away.
Are there any parking spaces along the west side of the building? When I went by there, I see that there's a paved area on the west side. Will there be any parking there?
At the west side, there is parking area.
Is there any parking area?
Yeah, they are building it. They are
I'm not sure if there's, I haven't been there in a while.
they are preparing.
I don't think there's any parking either.
It's paved.
Is it paid?
Yeah, I mean, there was a delivery
There's
truck
gonna
there.
be a new building put in there.
Okay.
And can I give you like another drawing here to just to explain? like how big the building like feet away compared to other, like it's bigger than all the five stores.
Why don't we mark this,
Yeah.
as the exhibit number one?
Like,
Why don't you, hold on just a second, Mr. Brown. Yeah, mark this as EX number one up in the corner there.
thank you.
And,
On the right hand or left hand?
Doesn't matter.
Is that okay?
yes.
Okay.
Um,
Sorry.
and then when you turn in the paperwork, would you arrange to have that submitted as part of the record
Okay.
on this case?
Like, if you want to go ahead to explain this about this drawing, the other drawing, like it show like the building, it's like the west side of the building. All the west side, all of it is Petaway, belong Petaway. So just in case, imagine if we put a very small sign here, like even if somebody like driving there, you know, you're gonna look a huge store with a small sign. It's you know, people they don't know what is the ordinance, but they're gonna look. There is no symmetry between the building, between the two ends. Tropical smoothie is a good sign, and here gonna be like very small sign. And another thing, very small sign compared to the Petaway building also, because we have like 80 plus the 22 is more than 100 here showing in the picture. But if you calculate all the length of all five stores, is less than 100. So we are now in this case, you have to compare me like Petaway with the tropical smoothie.
So our argument would be the 80 foot of frontage was included with Tropical Smoothies approval signs. We should get the same approval on the other side, we hope.
Sure they were. Ms. Krebs, can you comment, just on whether the tropical smoothie, tropical cafe smoothie had, would they have another sign on the east side of the building?
No, not on the east side.
No, but they were allowed to use the 80-foot length of the building for their sign calculation because that side fronts Zeeb Road. That's the difference here. The east side where Tropical Smoothie is located is on the corner. It has Jackson frontage and Zeeb Road frontage. The Petaway side on the west side of this building does not have road frontage along that 80-foot west wall. There's actually another building pad is what you see as the cement that's there. That's a third building that's going to be located adjacent to Petaway. So they don't front any street on the west side. And that's why we didn't calculate their signs based on that 80-foot linear wall.
I have two questions for you, Ms. Krebs. We'll be in a little out of order here, but I'll allow you additional time. If you need to, Mr. Bahar or Mr. Karana. Didn't Tropical Cafe Smoothie ask for a variance?
I don't believe they did, no.
Okay.
It's just
Second
the
of
same
all-
space that we're talking about, that pizza place was.
Little
like-
Caesars.
Little Caesars did, and they were denied.
Right. Okay, thank you. And the other question I have is, I was up there, to look at this. I've been up there a couple of times. Is Tropical Cafe Smoothie actually open yet?
Yes,
Is the sign in their window allowed?
window signs are different than wall signs.
Okay.
We're just talking about wall signs.
Okay.
So Laura, are there any rules around window signs?
There are, but they're separate from, and typically we don't require, permits for window signs, so long as they're, I believe, 25% of the window. But if they're interior, like not on the window, that's a little bit different. So I'm not sure what Tropical Smoothies is. I can't
Well,
recall it off.
I'll, Okay, thanks. So, Mr. Karana, Mr. Bahur, I'll ask you this. Are you taking the position that, the calculation of, how much square footage you would be able to do under the ordinance is accurate
Under the ordinance,
according to the ordinance?
according to the ordinance, like this Peter Way, like because the road is on Jackson.
I'm sorry, perhaps I misled you and the question wasn't very good. I think you were talking about smoothie. I'm just talking about your sign.
Yes, yeah.
Your sign.
Yes,
not-
yeah.
Not anybody
No, mine.
else's, not AT&T, no, nobody, just your sign.
I got you.
The sign, the allowable 36.3 square feet, is that accurate according to the ordinance?
Yes, for Peter Way, according to the ordinance is 36 only for two of them. They calculate like the Peter Way, it's on Jackson 22.
Right.
Yeah,
And
because the 80 is not on the road. That's the ordinance. That's why we are coming here, because the 80 is not on to the road.
Okay, are you saying it should be, the ordinance should be changed, or
No.
are you saying that there's something wrong with the calculation made by?
Yes, yeah, the ordinance is okay. This is the ordinance. We are coming here to get a variance, like
But
Well,
we're not here for a variance, so
I
it's
don't
not gonna
think
happen.
so.
what's gonna happen?
It's not gonna happen.
I have a couple other, well, one question first. I don't see any definition of frontage in the, ordinance. And the section that we're looking at talks about, says that business centers that face both a street and parking lot. And I think the question is interpretation of, does this face a street or parking lot?
And just for the record, which ordinance
Uh,
section are you referring to?
You're 36-371 B2.
Okay. Well, that's the one that says 1 square foot for each linear foot of the building frontage occupied by the business.
Yes, and then it says
Yeah,
business,
I'm sorry, it does go on from there. but
Right.
Yeah, just want to make sure we're on the same page.
so I mean, I think really the question is the interpretation of, does this face a street and a parking lot? And I would note that in the paragraph 1, there are places where they make specific reference to public streets, and they don't make that reference in subparagraph 2. They don't claim that it is public. So I guess one question I have is, having driven out there, as you drive on the entry road to the Myers parking lot,
Which one?
You're talking about
I'm sorry,
Jackson.
heading south off of Jackson Road. If you head toward Myers and look off to your left as you drive along that road, the first thing that you see is the long wall, the west wall of the Peter Way property.
Right.
We have
Yes,
discussion of what it's going to do.
Well, we really aren't there yet.
Okay, good enough.
We're at the evidence,
Okay, go
Okay,
ahead.
great.
sort of the evidence stage at this
I'll
point.
wait till later.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead, Ms. Raymond.
That's okay. I think this falls more into terms of discussion, so I'll withhold that for now.
Okay. Yeah, I was just asking the applicant for what their position was, so I can narrow down what the issue is we have to decide. And if it's not, if it's boiling down to what frontage means, I guess we can talk about that.
I have a question.
I do too.
Okay. So, you go first.
Ms. Bahura, you were first.
No, she can go ahead.
No, you go.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, this couple questions actually. this may not be relevant, but why didn't you apply for a straight variance?
You know, I think he misunderstood and didn't apply for the correct thing. I thought I was coming to a variance meeting. He handles all my signs. I'm busy running my company. I literally had 30 meetings today with restaurant workers. And it's so important in signage, which is why I made it important to come here and try to get the biggest sign we can.
Have you challenged sign ordinances or variances in other cities or jurisdictions?
We have. I think there was just a little mistake in this one. But I think I might have a different type of argument that could work for us. Jackson Road, you could see this, the long wall from Jackson Road, you could argue that that's frontage. If you could approve 80 feet of frontage, based on the formula, we can get the sign size we want. You could see us from Jackson Road on the wall. You could argue that that's frontage.
I'd like to hear what Laura thinks about that.
Well, yeah, there's another building going in.
Right, that's the problem.
Yeah, is there, yeah.
It's not there now.
They're not-
We have to look at this based on what we're looking at today, I think.
Even if you consider not the 80 feet long, even if you consider 40, only 40,
Like the half 40.
half the 80, still, we are not requesting a big sign. We are requesting like 36 square feet. That not need like the frontage to be 80. Even if it's half of the 80, like 40, is gonna enough to make these signs. We are requesting a small signs, like.
That sounds more like a variance to me.
Yeah, that, what he's saying,
And that's a different issue.
that's a different, I agree.
I'd say that's the problem.
I think that, yeah. In any event, I think we understand your position now. Does anybody else have any questions of the applicant? And Ms. Krebs, I know that Carlisle Workman has to take the position that you're really can't act as an active advocate in this matter because you're the official that made the decision,
Yes.
so to speak. So,
Well, I just I wanna make clear though that the third Meyer Outlot building has always been part of the project. This isn't a new building that's separate from that development. And that it is going to be under construction in the next couple of months. So this isn't something that's new and separate from what's been constructed there already. This third building, which will go on the west side of this building, has always been proposed. And so, you know, this is, I don't see, and that's why I had this,
that's okay.
opinion, is that this doesn't have frontage, so. But I'm happy to answer any other questions you might have.
What do you mean you won't answer any more questions? We may have questions.
No, I said I would.
Oh, you would? I'm sorry, my hearing aid isn't really turned on all the way, so excuse me.
This is how you get in
Mr.
trouble.
Walsh? Huh?
This is how you get in trouble.
Yeah, I know. Does anybody else have any questions do you have something more to present?
Yes, yeah.
Mr. Kernan?
I want to show you, like, if we go by the ordinance and the sign that allowed by ordinance is gonna be this size. Compare this sign to the building, like,
Why don't you make sure
they're gonna
that
share.
the guy in the yellow shirt, make sure he gets one of
You
those.
can you share that with you, because I have.
Okay.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Mark that as
And that's
exhibit.
two.
Yeah.
Please mark that as exhibit number 2.
This is the whole building,
Mr. Shield.
the sign gonna be like.
All right, is there anything else, Mr. Harana or Mr. Bahura, that you would care to offer?
I have something to say.
Go ahead.
Like, this is Laura, she said that there is another tenant, he came here and they refused to do big sign. Who came here, they are Little Caesar's Pizza. They have very small frontage. They have even less than 20 feet. Now we have 144 feet. Compare 144 to less than 20. For sure, you know, like imagine how big the building, how big the walls, how long it is. There's very big difference between 144 feet and less than 20 feet. And the Little Caesars is very small here. Look, it's not showing here. It's between feet away and the other store, the tobacco store. It's very small. For sure, they're gonna refuse this. You know, I don't know, like, but for us, you know, we are seeking your help. He has right to get a bigger sign. But all of this is to you, like guys.
I don't know what the reason was behind the denial of the Little Caesars variant, but they do have a much smaller frontage. Just a random question for you guys. If we did pursue a variance at another time, what would you guys, I mean, obviously, we're hard restaurant workers and we do good in communities because I'm all about quality and service, and signage is very important to the growth of the company.
Yeah, you're sort of asking us, what will we do if this was the variance? And frankly, I think I can speak for the ZBA. The answer is we don't know.
Okay,
Because there's various other issues that would have to be addressed.
got it.
I mean, I understand what you're asking.
Yeah. The reason,
And we can't even treat it as a variance.
I get it.
Time.
I get it.
We're strictly as to whether the administrative official made a mistake in his interpretation of the wording of the ordinance.
Got it.
I think that's accurate.
Well, we don't think Laura's wrong. We like Laura.
Reasonable minds can differ though.
Yeah. I like you a lot.
Any other
You,
questions?
everyone here, they like you.
I liked her argument about that off the wire. That sounded legit.
We haven't figured that one out.
He is the best from all my clients, you know, whatever, you
If
know.
I wasn't a
think-
people person, I wouldn't have 40 restaurants.
Yeah.
You have 40?
This is number 33. I'm opening on 500 East William, where he's doing some monstrous signs on a building.
Just by happenstance.
On
Yeah,
the East
right on
William,
campus,
they
right on
approve.
campus.
That's City of the Upper.
Oh, yeah, I know, what's close by,
They do things differently.
for sure.
Yeah.
No, I believe it, for sure.
Yes, yeah.
No, okay, I'm sorry. But, yeah.
I told him today that they approve it, 18
Yeah.
feet long. That's why
Yeah.
it's in his mind now.
I have 27 restaurants
You-
open and 8 under construction. I just signed 5 more leases.
Yes, in Indiana, Ohio.
We do a great job, so when
Yeah.
we come in, we'll be sure to feed you guys.
You're not allowed to say that. You better withdraw that.
I am a man of my word. Oh, no.
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 Do any of the other members of the ZBA have any questions at this point for the applicant? No? All right, are there any members of the? Oh, first of all, let's report on site inspection, any conversations. I went over there a couple of times to look at that building and the area. Been over there, I go over there all the time. So, but I've had no conversations with the petitioner. Mr. Walsh?
I shop at Meyer all the time. I drove by just to look at the signs of those other buildings in the Meyer area as well as others on Jackson Road, but I did not speak to anyone regarding.
Mr. Shield?
I've been out there 3 times, and in particular, when I reread this, so I was doing multiple times. The comment about smoothie in your building, you know, kind of, why is that different? And then when you see it's a pad, you know that there's another building going in there. That was a eureka moment for me.
Well, Mr. Shields, we're just asking whether you had any conversations with the applicant.
I did not.
Okay, now we know you don't shop at Meyer, which we didn't need to know. Okay. Ms. Ramey?
Yes, I visited the site and drove around it and did not speak with anybody there.
Ms. Knoll?
I drove around it, that's all, didn't talk to anybody.
Okay. Are there any members of the public who support the petitioner, who desire to speak? No hands raised? And nobody, present, in the room. Are there any members of the public who oppose the petitioner who would like to speak? Raise your hand on Zoom if you wish to. And there's nobody here. Nobody there on Zoom?
There's 4 people, but no one's raising their hands.
Okay. And nobody here in the room here as well. And since there is nobody who spoke, I don't think a rebuttal is needed. I'll give the applicant one more chance if there's anything more you'd like to say.
The 80-foot on Jackson front just sounded good.
Thank you. All right, well, I would solicit a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll move.
Second,
Moved by Ms. Knoll, supported by Ms. Ramey to close the public hearing. Call the roll, please.
Off,
Yes?
Ramey,
yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Shields, yes, Noel.
Yes.
Okay, the public hearing is now closed and the ZBA will deliberate. Ms. Ramey, I think you should articulate your
Uh,
position on this. Because and
Yeah,
I say
I-
that because
uh,
you've already indicated something.
Yes, I would at the present time, based on what's there now, I would interpret the, ordinance to, qualify the entry drive, heading off of Jackson Road, south toward Myers as a street. And I would interpret this ordinance such that the west face of the building in question faces that street, and would therefore count that length in the ordinance interpretation.
All right,
Even though we know there are plans for future construction.
Yes,
And the construction will begin soon. Is that right, Laura?
Ms.
Yes,
Cra-
it's my understanding that, yes, construction will start this spring, if not earlier.
I have the additional concern that the sign there is not going to do you any good because in X months, nobody will be able to see that sign because the building will be.
I'm not looking for a sign there. I just want the sign bigger on the outside so people could see it. Otherwise, I might not even put a sign on that side and just put all my square footage on the front.
Well, okay, we're a little bit beyond that, Mr. Shields. We're now in deliberation. We're not asking the
I'm
applicant
sorry.
to say anything.
All right.
And in a manner of speaking, it's out of order. So, we're here for debate, so to speak.
Right.
Go ahead, Ms.
Okay, I just got a few comments. I have to think about what Diana has said, but I want to remind everyone that Scio recently, within the last 3 years, updated our sign ordinance. And our current sign ordinance incorporates provisions that were part of a prior CJ that we had
Consent
agreed on.
judgment.
Yes, with another party. And we recently denied a variance request to Little Caesars. Other businesses have complied fully with our current zoning ordinance. And we have to treat everyone the same way. I have concerns about that. Also, your argument about the size of the sign. This whole area is getting busier and busier. And I'm not so sure a larger sign is gonna make that much difference, maybe a little, but there's so much traffic now driving around Myers and the outlots, and I think there's going to be a fair amount of traffic that will see your restaurant. So I'm not sure it makes that much difference. Right now, I'm in favor of following our zoning ordinances.
Well, let me say this, I guess, my position on this. With respect to Ms. Ramey, I disagree with your interpretation. The reason is because, and part of the ordinance does refer to frontage, and I understand that. But, if we look at, section 36-371 sub B sub 2, talking about wall signs, it says that, business centers that face both a street and a parking lot, 2 facades, may have 165% of the total sign space allowed with no single sign to exceed 1 square foot, et cetera, et cetera. But that clearly draws a distinction between 2 different sides of a building. It talks about the street, it talks about the parking lot, and specifically says 2 facades. So, I think that when you look at the wording of the ordinance, although frontage is referred to, I think clearly they're talking about facades, one on the parking lot side and one on the street side. And the distance between, first of all, the entranceway to the Meyer, gosh, only super center now. The driveway entrance is not a street under any stretch. It's a driveway. And it's also quite a distance from that driveway to that building, such that I don't think you could really, under a reasonable interpretation, say that that could be either frontage or being on a street. I'm just not seeing it. And I share Ms. Knoll's concern that another building apparently is planned right there and would take away from any sign that would wind up to be there. But I'm willing to, although acknowledging it, I'm willing to ignore it for purposes of how to interpret this. I guess that's my opinion. It's sort of in summary, I would be in favor of affirming the administrative decision. Gentlemen, your turn. Anybody?
I'm most comfortable with affirming the decision. Agree with Kathy, it was something I would have talked about as well, about we've got these rules in place that are new. We're trying to establish them around the whole community, and this is an important opportunity to do that. I think that building cannot be ignored. It's a month off. It's not going to be able to view it if it's a pathway or whatever we call that road. And I guess those are the 2 main things that are in my mind.
Mr. Walsh? Your thoughts?
Kind of
thinking about what both of you said, and I hadn't noticed the bit about the two facades, but based on comments from Ms. Krebs that Tropical Smoothie had the frontage on Zeeb Road, essentially they're getting three facades because they're on the corner. So technically, our zoning administrator has recognized that if you have a frontage on a road, the two facades is not locked in. On the other hand, with the building going next door, you can't argue that it's a parking lot or anything else. It's going to be blocked. And I think given that it's the immediacy of it, I can't argue that that side is a frontage. And I guess part of the reason I mentioned I drove around, we had Wheels in Motion, I believe, as part of Sun and Snow. I drove by that lot, which is in front of what used to be Quality 16. Their entrance is on the side of the building. They have a parking lot. There's parking there. That frontage, there is no sign. So I'm looking for consistency in how it's applied by our zoning administrator. And for me, that says if there's a building or whatever, that side doesn't count. So I'm lining up with the zoning administrator for the township. Their assessment of this is correct.
As a footnote to what you commented about Wheels in Motion, I'll just say, now, were you on the board when we
Yes.
dealt with it?
But again, it didn't come up, but they have the end. They've got a lot of parking lot frontage. There's no signage.
But was their sign, the size of their sign calculated, taking that,
Yes,
frontage
that was a little-
frontage into account?
That was a little bit different. It just, were you on the board then?
No,
Okay. I'm
I
doing,
must not have been
you
here.
may have missed that
May have
one.
missed that.
I'm doing it from pure memory. But my understanding also, I think, and that's why we can't compare that one easily with this one, because I think there were two businesses.
Yes,
And that was another problem.
but they had, again, this is memory and the variances are different than this. We talked about the allowable signage based on front and back, but not side
And
square
that,
footage.
that part of it is the same as.
And I was looking for consistency in how it's been applied. And if there's another building, that western side doesn't count.
Anybody?
I'm open.
Ms. Ramey,
Yeah,
your
I wasn't at that meeting.
debate is still
but,
going on. It's
yeah.
your turn.
I think that if the goal is to be consistent in that, based on that other meeting, then I should probably abstain from voting on this one, because
It's a variance.
okay.
That was a variance.
That
That
was
wasn't an
different.
interpretation.
That's why that's what I was
Yes.
trying to say. It's hard
I
to
see.
compare. And there was
Okay.
another big issue there too, that isn't involved. No,
Yeah.
I encourage you not to abstain, please. Certainly not based
Yeah.
on that.
I think I maintain my position. I think that driveway's a road. I drove on it. It's a thoroughfare and there's no requirement that it be a public thoroughfare according to the ordinance.
But
So-
you're also driving on parking lots. And you're also driving on interior. Of course, over there, it's kind of hard to really say this, but I mean, there is somewhat of a path that you drive over there. The parking lot screws it up a lot, but
We're
my-
talking about facing a street and a parking lot. So, I mean,
well, my point is you still drive on a parking lot. But you also drive on a driveway and neither of them are streets. That's all.
Guess I'm gonna counter you again. The ordinance does allow for parking lots. So, I mean, we're getting into individual interpretation of two. Well, whatever
We
the,
are.
that's,
Well, I think we are.
yeah,
I think that's what
3671 2B. Or B2, sorry. So. The fact that you're driving on a parking lot is fine. It's just, again, it's what do we consider frontage?
Oh, yeah, and I agree. I don't think it's, that driveway is not a street, in my opinion. And certainly the way the ordinance is written, in various respects, I think it does not constitute a street. That particular driveway. But I guess we're at loggerheads as far as that goes, but
It's a vote.
so, I'll solicit a motion from somebody. Anybody?
Just give me a minute. I'm gonna try to think
Oh,
of
all right.
all the statements of fact.
Can I ask a question?
Oh,
You,
okay, you,
I guess it's relevant for Bob though.
Go ahead.
So we're gonna have the same 5 questions?
Now,
no, and that's,
Was that-
that was,
Those would be variance.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah.
yeah, and
I think we start with the fact.
In
that the format has
administrative
to be-
review, it's simply a question of, did the zoning official make an error of law? Or did they correctly interpret the ordinance? And we simply go to affirm or
reverse.
reverse.
writing stuff down as we were discussing instead of trying to call it all.
I was hoping to buy you time.
Yes, you are. Ask more questions.
Ask a quick question.
You're sort of out of order. We're
Oh, I'm
kind of
sorry.
finished,
I
but
apologize.
I'll allow you.
It's in regards to what you said when you were speaking.
Okay.
You mentioned that the facade towards the road and the facade towards the parking lot could count towards the 165%, correct?
Well,
Or
the parking lot and the
like the
street.
front of the parking lot, like I have 22 feet on wide, let's forget about the side. But I have 22 feet in the front by the parking lot and then 22 feet in the back by the road. If that was allowable, that's all I need anyways.
Okay.
You are out of order, and we have discussed this. And I would, well, let's finish, let's get this done one way or the other.
Okay, thank you.
So, have we closed discussion? Because,
We have
No,
no motion yet.
no, not at
so
all.
we can't close
Go ahead.
discussion to motion.
the determination that's being appealed says it was calculated that the frontage occupied by the applicant was 22 linear feet, the area of the building facing the parking lot and or Jackson Road. So
Also.
is that
allow-
calculation incorrect then?
No.
Because there's a 22 feet facing
Well, as I read it, it's 22 feet, but with an allowable 165%. So it actually, the total is 36.3.
But if the ordinance says business centers that face
Mr. Chair, if I may,
Yeah, go ahead, Ms. Krebs.
yeah,
typically we look at one side, one frontage, and calculate the signage from one side. So in this case, they have 22 feet in the front on Jackson Road and 22 feet in the rear or parking lot. So we take one of those frontage distances, 22 feet, and calculate it by 1.65 for the total allowable signage.
1 point,
1.65 because they're allowed 165% of the frontage of one side. So
Okay.
that's why it's important that they're asking for the west side because that's 80 feet. And so if we calculate the 80 feet, they get a lot more signage, but we only calculate the one side.
why not 165% of 44 feet? 22
One
feet.
side. One
Oh,
side.
what?
That's how we've always calculated it, by one side.
But if the idea is that if you're facing two different locations and potentially, and I think that's where they use the word facade. So potentially there's a space for two sides.
Yes, and that's why the ordinance was increased to 165% to allow for both sides. Because before, we only allowed one side and the total square footage, 1 square foot per one side. And so when we changed the ordinance based on that consent judgment, it was increased to 165% of one building frontage.
Okay, and that was a provision in the consent judgment.
Correct, and that's what
Okay,
the
so
ordinance
there-
was based on.
So you're bound by that, okay.
I think this is actually simpler than I'm thinking it to believe, so.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Wall.
Variance number 23009, Scio Retail Management LLC by Ani Karana regarding sign for Pita Way, 5609 Jackson Road, H-08-21-400-042. The applicant requests an administrative review of a determination made by an administrative official regarding building frontage as it relates to allowable wall signs. The applicant requests that the west side of the building be considered the frontage of the building for purposes of determining total allowable wall signs rather than the north or south sides of the building as determined by the Scio Township Administrative Zoning Official. This administrative review is being requested pursuant to section 36-427.c of the Scio Township zoning ordinance. The administrative review, if successful, would allow 72 square feet of total signage rather than the maximum permitted 36.3. It has been determined that an error of law in the decision of the Scio Township Administrative Zoning Official has not been made based on the following. The west side of the building has, by definition, no frontage. There will be, as the Meyer outlots are developed, an additional building to be established there with construction starting, assume this spring or earlier. That based on section 36-371 permitted signs in commercial office and industrial districts of the zoning ordinance. Subsection B, section 2 on wall signs states that basically the administrative decision is correct.
Okay, motion by Mr. Walsh to deny the appeal. Is there support for that? Support by Ms. Knoll. Any discussion?
Want to ask one question? When you were reading off your draft motion, did you leave out the final sentence? The zoning board of appeals finds that the subject appeal should not be granted due to the following findings of fact. Did you leave that out?
I took it right off of the Carlisle Water.
Okay, okay. I wasn't sure it was in there.
And when you were citing the number, because we just had a little bit of confusion last time in the minutes, I saw, you referred to section 36-371 permitted signs in commercial office industrial district sub B as in boy.
Correct.
Any other discussion? I'll ask Mr. Shields to call the roll.
Oath,
Off.
sorry.
Aye.
Ramey,
No.
Walsh,
Yes.
Shields, yes. No,
Yes.
Mr. Shields, I would ask you to give a copy of the decision to the applicant, please, that I've signed and dated today. Good luck, gentlemen.
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for your time. I appreciate it. We look forward to serving you guys very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Looking forward to eating. I'm always looking for a good lunch place.
Mr. Shields, I'll give you a couple more copies of these.
We got minutes to approve still?
Yes.
Yeah, we do have a couple other things we have to do.
it's give to,
Have a good night.
Thanks.
good night,
Good night.
give these to Fran tomorrow.
Yes, please. I'm gonna try to keep a copy of all of these decisions myself, but I'm not sure I have them already at this point. Okay, the next item on the agenda is old business. And I don't know of any old business. Except for perhaps at this point, we can seek a comment from Mr. Walsh as our liaison to the planning commission as to any updates from that group.
We haven't had any meetings since the last ZBA, I think on the 22nd or. We have one scheduled for Monday. The only two, and the information came out today. I haven't read it. There are two items on there. One relates to the bylaws of the planning commission. The other relates to a solar ordinance, but I haven't read them yet.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes of December 21st, 2023. Does anybody have any corrections
Just
to that?
I'll state what we state each time. Whoever does these does a fabulous job.
Yeah, actually,
These really good.
I do get them. I get them before you folks do. I don't know why, but if there's anything obvious, I'll try to note it at that point. And as I may have commented, talking about Mr. Walsh's motion. The only corrections that I noted last time, which I believe have been all corrected, were some sections of the zoning ordinance that were not correct, but I think they are now. Whoops, did we lose everybody here? Oh, there's there. Okay. And that's the reason I corrected Mr. Walsh, B as in boy,
Yeah.
because that was one of the issues, because we say it too quickly.
Yeah.
It's hard to distinguish them sometimes. So are there any other, corrections, Mr. Shields?
I have two on page two. I'm not sure, actually, this is a correction, but under public hearings, I think there should be a comma between the 2 and PM and the time.
Say that again?
So in this, in the paragraph is the last line, public hearing opened at 7:12
Right.
PM. There's no space in there. I think usually there's a space. So I don't know if that's worth correcting or not.
Space?
Between the 2 and PM.
Oh.
Yeah.
Sure.
I'm willing to let
We
that.
can, yeah, there should be a space between the number 2 and the letter P as in Paul.
Right.
Yeah. Under number 5, the first, non-bold sentence.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then on page 7,
Pretty good, Mr. Shute.
the S and second S in Shields. Should be
what?
added. My last name, third line,
Again, they made that
Dis-
terrible error.
despite how wonderful she is.
Please
And
correct
I'm
me.
not anal about my name being spelled right, but
Well, you couldn't even pronounce mine.
I could spell it though.
Oh. Could you please correct Mr. Shields' name on page 7 at the second sentence, please?
Turn it in.
And, anybody else? Then I'd ask for a motion for approval as
Motion to
corrected.
approve
Support.
As corrected?
as corrected.
Okay, motion, by, Ms. Ramey, supported by Mr. Walsh to approve the minutes as corrected. Call the roll, please.
Let me write this down, that's correct. Auth,
Aye.
Ramey,
Yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Shields, yes.
Okay.
Noel,
Yes.
All right, then the next item on the agenda is other business, and underneath that it says possible action, other business. On the website, if you click on other business, there's 2 items that do come up. And although they weren't printed on the agenda, I guess technically they're still there. And they are the election of officers.
Say.
And a discussion of a possible amendment to our rules of procedure. And why don't we do the election first? We need to have chairperson, vice chairperson, and secretary for the coming year. Mr. Walsh is not eligible because of his position on the planning commission.
I would nominate Mr. Ott as chair and Ms. Knoll as vice chair.
Why don't you stay on as vice chair?
Because I think you are far more qualified.
Not necessarily.
You know, there's a problem with that. First, 2.8 of our rules of procedure. Yeah, the last line, an elected township official shall not serve as an officer of the ZBA.
Oh, okay.
So
Either,
Ms.
by the
Knoll
way.
and I are both off. So the 3 of you have to be the officers.
Okay.
I will second.
I would rather, well, I have experience as vice chair. I can continue in that capacity.
I would nominate Ms. Ramey as vice chair,
Okay.
I will second that one as well.
and I would nominate Mr. Shields as secretary.
I'll second that.
Got all those motions?
let's go through them again. So nominating you was
Ms. Ramey?
Ramey and Noel.
No, me.
Walsh, okay. Ramey was you.
Yes.
And for me, it was you and
Kathy.
Kathy.
Yep.
We'll spread that around. Right?
All right, so we have three motions on the floor, to take them one by one. A motion to nominate Ms. Or to elect Ms. Ramey as vice chair. Call the roll.
Oth,
Yes,
Ramey, can you go
Yes.
then?
yes, yes, you can.
Walsh.
Yes,
Shields, yes. Noel.
Yes.
And then a motion for Mr. Shields, to be the secretary for the upcoming year. Could you call the roll?
Oth,
Yes.
Ramey,
Yes,
Walsh.
yes,
Shields, yes. Noel.
Yes.
And finally, a motion for me to be the chairperson for the next year. Call the roll.
Oth,
Yes.
Ramey,
yes.
Walsh.
yes.
Shields, yes. Noel.
Yes.
Okay, that takes care of that. The only other item of business that we have is a discussion of an amendment to Rule 4.6, the ZBA rules. Let me just, I drafted up this for discussion purposes. And the background on this is that for some period of time, and my recollection probably is for years, that we had an agenda that just kept repeating itself, one after the other, with certain, items in it. But the order of the agenda was always the same. Then I was told that we had to adhere to the rules of the zoning board, specifically Rule 4.6. That the agenda has to be as follows. And that was told to me by Ms. Zuma, who told me that somebody had instructed her to do that. I did not inquire further, so I don't know. But I thought that since we were actually missing a couple of things we had before, including the adoption of the agenda, communications of correspondence, and one or two other little things. I thought it would be appropriate to change our rules to have something like this, and the italicized and underlined ones in this thing I came up with are the changes. And you'll note that the order of business can be varied according to the chairperson's discretion. We included an adoption of agenda, communications and correspondence, and swearing in, but since none of this ever explains swearing in, I thought we'd better add of the persons giving testimony during a public hearing. And you know what, where that came from? It's because we had a gentleman who wanted to say that he was in support of a variance for a neighbor of his. And when I asked to swear him in, he hesitated. He said, nobody ever does that. And I thought about it for a while later, and if all he was gonna say is I'm in favor of it, I'm not sure that's testimony and doesn't need a swearing in. So that's why I'm saying swearing in of persons giving testimony during a public hearing, because there's no need. I don't think we have to swear in people who have an opinion on something or make a public comment. You know, it's not necessary. So I thought we'd make that clear. And the rest of it is somewhat self-explanatory. Other business, including the PC liaisons. So it's always there, so it's always reminding us to do it. And then the public comment, you'll see that it refers to the basic wording of our old agenda that we had for such a long time that says citizens wishing to address the ZBA matters which are not on the public hearing portion of the agenda. But I added on, and which pertain to township zoning matters. And the reason is I did some research on my own. I don't see anything that even absolutely requires public comment, but the way that it would be, that our old agenda used to say, basically you talk about anything you want, including, you know, Eskimos and penguins and whatever. And I don't think that's appropriate personally. So I'm saying pertaining to zoning. Go ahead.
As I recall, the ZBA has to conform with the Open Meetings Act.
That's correct.
And I'm not sure in the rules of the OMA that you can restrict the topic of what a public comment person might be saying. Yeah, I'm not sure you can.
May I ask for you to take a look at it yourself
I will.
before the next meeting?
Okay.
And everyone can, I did. And there's just, well, I'll wait.
Okay.
I'll wait to hear from my sister attorneys on that matter. And I haven't completed it, but I can't find anything that says it. And I don't think that, you know, I think that appropriately would be matters this is not a board of trustees meeting. And it's particularly dealing with stuff here. That's why I'm just saying it's zoning matters, which even by itself is pretty wide open. But why don't we talk about it? I just say, I'm just suggesting this, and let me know if I'm wrong. Send me a little note and I'll double check it if you need me to, or to enlighten me, because I just couldn't find it. The oral presentation limitations are the same as what they were before. And I can also find nothing other than a statement that the time can be limited.
Yes, it can be.
So that's my suggestion. Think about it. If anybody has any other ideas for changes, I would like to change it because I don't think this order of business tells you anything. And, you know, it leads to stuff like this printed agenda, which says possible action, other business, but what are they? You have to drill down on the webpage to find them. And as I indicated to the staff, that, you know, that's really hiding things, which I'm not really a big fan of. So
I'm very supportive of the adoption of the agenda. Been in committees here for a long time. You all, more than me even, always have adoption of the agenda. And when I took over this, I started putting that in the list and it wasn't there.
Yeah, actually, Mr. Shields is the one who drew it to my attention initially. And I said, what? And that's when I made my inquiries.
And I agree with communications and correspondence needs to be in there someplace. This is as reasonable as any place else.
Yeah. Yeah, because there are a couple of items of, communication which we received, since the last meeting. But it's not on the agenda because it's not in the rules. So again, it would be, I'm just saying, I think it would be appropriate. And that's all I got.
So we'll review that.
Yeah,
Talk
bring it
about
up,
more details.
we'll bring it up under,
Little business.
other business or old business perhaps. We'll bring it up under old business for the next meeting. All right, that's all I got. Anybody got anything else? Ladies, gentlemen? I'll solicit a motion to adjourn.
Second,
Moved by Mr. Wall, seconded by Ms. Ramey. Mr. Shields, do your duty.
Swath,
Yes.
Ramey,
yes.
Walsh,
Yes.
Shields, yes, Noel.
Yes.
All right, we are adjourned at,